Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew, and I'm so excited to have with us today, as we continue our Breaking into Cyber series for 2026, Mike Bonner with High Tech. And Mike, I'm going to pass it to you for a quick introduction.
Sure. So my name is Mike Bonner. I am the CISO or Chief Information Security Officer for High Tech. We are a service technology integrator, services integrator, as well as value-added reseller here in Arizona. I have been in the security industry for just coming up on 30 years, just shy of 30 years. I have had various security roles over those 30 years. It has almost entirely been security focused. So I started my career way back when just as a general IT administrator, but security focused, just because that was really not a thing in the late 90s. And I have just carried that forward to today. I've been a CISO at a handful of places, whether I wanted it to be or not. You kind of just sometimes get thrown into those roles. Yeah.
Hey, we know a guy. It's like, hey, that's me.
Yeah. It is the sad reality that you sometimes find yourself in, that as you grow your career, sometimes it goes in directions that you don't always want to do, primarily because people think, hey, if we're paying you more money, you're taking on some responsibilities, things like people ownership, people management,
Yeah.
which you may or may not want to do. And I think I embody a lot of those questions and challenges.
No, well, awesome. Well, Mike, it's so good to have you here on the channel. And like, obviously, you and I go back from with DC 4.0, which is our local
Yep.
DEF CON chapter here in Arizona. And well, I'm going to go ahead and we'll get to our first question we ask everybody that we get onto the channel is
Sure.
cybersecurity. So, Mike, we are very lucky and blessed to be in the job title roles that we are today within the cyber house of the umbrella. But way back in the day, back in first grade, second grade, third grade, we had career fairs. We had those "What do you want to be when you grow up?" talks of doctors and lawyers and astronauts and football players and rock band musicians. But we obviously got into cyber. Kind of, what was that journey for you, and how did you get to where you are today?
So my career has primarily been driven by forces in the universe outside of my control. So like on the wall behind the camera, I love education. I was big into education. I went to Villanova and I banged out 5 degrees in the 4 years that I was there. But my background is electrical and computer engineering. And so, back in the late 90s, I was like, I want to do engineering. Engineering is my thing. So, I took circuitry classes, high energy electrical engineering labs. Like, I have all of my soldering iron and kits and everything down there. I still build and tinker from time to time. And that was my passion. And my first real job outside of university IT was for IBM. Everyone will know that company. And I was originally supposed to go work for a gentleman named James Heck. And he was in the circuitry development. So like processor development type things. So IBM's PowerPC way back when. And I was supposed to go be an intern for him. Well, it turns out his son also worked for IBM as an IT consultant. And so I showed up for my first day of my internship. They had assigned me to the wrong James Heck. And so I started working for Morgan Stanley doing IT consulting. And I just never left because it was awesome.
So cool.
Yeah, most of my career has just been accident after accident and me just falling backwards into lucky situations.
It's like if you've seen Suits, where he walks into the interview to be a lawyer and he's like, all right, you here for the interview? He's like, what interview? All right, sit down. Oh man, you're perfect. I'm perfect for what? You got the job. I got a job.
Yeah.
And it just
yeah. That has been my career the entire time. Things where I don't realize, like I think somebody just wants to have a casual conversation, not realizing it's actually an interview. Or like somebody hitting me with a job offer of something I didn't know was an option or a thing. I wound up here in Phoenix by accident. So I came out here for a project and my house in New Jersey burned down. So like every phase of my career and like every big thing has like the universe kind of pushed me in that direction. I've had little to no input.
Dude, I did not know that about your New Jersey house getting burnt down, man. That's wild. Dude, that's so crazy.
That was the story. There is so I had been working for IBM for the previous 7 years, and I was running the security and privacy practice, and they were shipping me traveling constantly. So when you're young, traveling is awesome and it's fun, but eventually it gets old.
Yeah,
I
for
had
sure.
things like relationships suffer, right? The last year I was at IBM, I was only home for 52 days out of the last year.
Oh wow.
Um, and, yeah, and so girlfriend left me. Not a shocker.
You're never there.
um,
I'm like, I know.
yes, exactly. And so I had decided, okay, I'm going to find a company that's going to keep me local. I went to go work for a company called Kalins, who promised to keep me in New York City. That was the whole selling point. And I did some work in New York City, and like 2 months into it, they basically said, Mike, I hate to do this to you, dude. I know we told you we were going to keep you here, but we need you on like a 3-week project at Maricopa County. And so I came out here, and they wanted me to move out. They obviously liked the work. And when I was considering that, I met the woman who's now my wife, and we went on our first date. And I'm like evaluating the letter to move out here, and I was like, I have a house in New Jersey. I don't want to have to move out here. And then, on my third date with my wife, my brother is, spam calling me, and I finally get home and I pick up the phone and say, hey, what was so important? Mike, your house burned down. So it's like, got it, universe, move to Phoenix.
We can fix that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. Guess this now
Yeah.
makes sense. Dude, that's so wild, man.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, Mike, it actually leads into the next great question I think that we can pivot to is, and this is like the chicken before the egg that obviously I'm sure you get asked a ton when you go to conferences by students, folks trying to level up in their career, is certifications, education, and experience. Now, where do you rank the three and why?
I'd probably put experience first, certification second, and then education third.
Yep.
And the reason I do that is, it, and education and certifications are a little bit of a gray area. I can go back and forth a little bit.
Yep. Agreed.
Because education, for the most part, doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. Typically, when we get folks out of university first years, they don't have a lot of the engineering background, which makes a security practitioner useful and valuable. When it comes to the certifications, they can be indicative of what I'm actually looking for, which is passion. I'm looking for somebody who's interested in technology.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who get into information security because they've been told, hey, this is a good way to make a lot of money and have a nice, stable, secure career because there is this phantom, X millions of jobs available.
Yep.
That metric isn't actually real. It is based on the idea that, hey, if you have X number of employees, you should have Y number of security people. And no companies really properly staff their security organization other than after a breach.
Yeah, of course. Right? We don't have funding. What?
Yeah, it's so weird. We found this big old bag of cash.
Guys, I found this suitcase of $5 million after we lost that $2 million of that ransomware breach. Isn't this nuts? And anyway.
Yeah. So to me, like certifications can be very meaningful. And I'll give you an example. So at 2 jobs ago, I hired a gentleman named Dalen up in Maine. And when he sent in his resume, I almost thought it went to the wrong person because his experience was like, hey, I've worked in hospitality. I am a line chef at a casino. He had a lot of those kind of experiences. But then at the very bottom, it said like top 2% in either Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, one of those 2 platforms. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And so, I interviewed him, and that guy was awesome, right? I don't think he even had his GED. I don't think he ever graduated high school. And so he had just been living his life. And at some point in time, somebody told him, hey, this security thing is a career. And he took the initiative on his own to go start banging away at it. And like,
Yep.
You talked to him, and it was kind of like he had no idea that was a passion for him until like he knew that was a thing. And then he spent a bunch of time on it. And you cannot replicate that. Like the folks who come into security and think I'm doing this just to have a job and a future, that kind of stuff, you're not really going to kill it in this industry. Like, you really need to love the things that you do. You
Yeah.
need to love, you need to have a passion for puzzles or admittedly trolling. But there
Agreed.
is, especially
If you can't make a good meme inside your team chat, I don't know if I can trust you. It's
yeah, yeah. I have gone. So I've been lucky in my career that right place, right time. I happened to be there for the original RSA breach and working that as an incident. The follow up with Operation Night Dragon, like I got to directly troll the PLA. So ABT1, I got to directly troll some of their agents through like APIs and back and forth. Like, there is that element of security that some people don't have, and you have to have that, like, that curiosity and that want to be like, how can I break this thing, how can I use this to screw with somebody, because if you don't have that, then you're just reading through other people's documentation on what they think they would do to go to break a system.
One thing I got told, Mike, and I'm sure you've sat through and seen many resumes that came across your table or through your team where like, hey, we want to hire this guy or gal. And I was talking to a buddy of mine that's over at Charles Schwab. And he's like, yeah, Andy, you want to know what would really impress me if I was like since I'm a hiring manager, when I see like a really unique resume? And it's kind of exactly like you said. It's like, it's not that they have like a 4-year rocking degree from Yale or they have every certification under the sun. Because some certifications are impressive, means that you're dedicated, you can learn, attend to the detail, you test well, you understand the concepts, terminology. But like, tell me about your home lab. Tell me about like the cool projects you've done. Show me your GitHub. Walk me through like how you're maybe going through capture the flags. And like, me and some of my buddies have a capture the flag team. We do 3 every year. We usually score top 10. I specialize in OSINT. Like that's to me where it's like, yeah, man, you show me someone that brings that to my table, or like, hey, and this is a weird one that I've been starting to talk to my mentees about. I say, make a YouTube channel. And I know that sounds silly, but don't make it public. You don't have to go be like a new influencer like Mr. Beast, but make a private YouTube channel and go do like specialized rooms where like do some Splunk rooms where you have a walkthrough of you building out the dashboards, solving the questions, doing the write-ups. And as you have the interviews, and as long as the interviews go well, hey, sir, Mr. Bonner, I'd love to also send you a link to my private YouTube channel that can showcase my skill sets on, I know we talked about Splunk today. I have a whole series of me doing these Splunk rooms that talks about my process, my mindset, my write-ups. And I'd just like to provide that to you to see. That way you can kind of see and hear me explain my work process. And my buddy's like, dude, you have somebody send me that, and that's their resume. I'd probably offer them a job right there off the bat. Other than like just looking at someone's piece of paper saying I have every CompTIA certification, I have a 4-year degree in cybersecurity and my security plus. Because I think it's just like you said, it's that passion in that it's that next step up or rung that really makes people stand out to make them the best candidate.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2 years ago at CactusCon, I'll give you an example of like somebody that immediately jumped out at me and we hired him. So 2 years ago at CactusCon, Tim Lee over at City of Tempe comes up to me, goes, hey, Mike, I've got this dude that I know. He's just graduating from GCU. He's looking for a Linux system admin job. Would you be willing to talk to him? And I said, you have a college grad who wants to be a Linux system admin? Bring him over. And we did. And, Andrew basically said, hey, I have a background in IT. Here's what my home lab sounds like. He's like, I've got 4 domain controllers, and here's how I set up replication. I've got them integrated with Kerberos to, my Linux systems. And these are the kinds of things that I do. I could not get a job offer to that kid fast enough, right? Like, there's a lot of people who come out of college and they might know how to triage and alert, which is great. Like, especially if you're getting started, no problem. But for the people that like genuinely love technology, who just love figuring out how things come together, that's what we're looking for. And sometimes it's apparent. Sometimes that passion and those skills come attached to a person that has a unique kind of personality, right? Myself included, a lot of us are on the spectrum, and sometimes the place of I'm really smart and passionate doesn't always convert to I know how to explain my ideas to other people.
Yep.
And so sometimes you need to interact with these people a little bit to get past the initial awkwardness that they may have.
Yeah. Oh, keep going I didn't mean to interrupt you, but no.
No, please go.
No, it's I'm an extroverted IT guy. which a lot of my managers are like, dude, we need to clone you. We need to replicate you. We need to put you out into the wild. Because it's very not uncommon that most IT teams are like recluses. We like to kind of just keep our head down, get the work done. And it's that communication though aspect that's obviously needed on every team. And you 100% can talk on this because we have instances that popped off on all the orgs I've worked with. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually that first tier 1 analyst or that analyst that found it or initially started the case that might be doing the, hey, can you quickly brief the tier 2 engineer or the SOC manager, or hey, we're gonna bring you onto the the big call with everybody, and you're gonna brief the C-suite on the initial, hey, what's going on. And it's not that a lot of these kids coming out of college that I've seen and talked to some awesome rock stars through CactusCon last year through Career Village. But I'll give you a good example too, where it's just like I've asked a few questions where it's like it's not even the technical questions that they can blow through them and they kill them, but it's the question of, hey, you're working on a project with a team, but then there's someone on the team you don't get along with, and you guys start to bump heads. Walk me through the process of how you would deconflict that. And I remember this one student's like, well, I don't really like deconflict. I don't like to be conflicted and stuff, so I'd probably just ignore them and get my work done and work around it. And it's not that it's the wrong answer, it's their answer, but that's not the answer that the employer is looking for. It's like, hey, we want to hear your thought process and like outside thinking of like, hey, would I address that individual and try to talk to him person to person? Would I try to involve a third party on the team saying, hey, is it something I'm doing? Is it something they're doing? Is it something we're both doing that's just, it's not working well? Would I just go to my manager after all that fails and say, hey, look, I'm having problems with person X, Y, Z, and I just want to have like a sit down to kind of do some type of deconfliction so we can get this project done successfully and not have any kind of like disconnects. And he's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And it's not that his answer was wrong, but just like you said, with a lot of folks that work in IT that kind of are back and forth and on and off the spectrum, that is a common response. And it's like, that's normal to them. It's like, no, I can just get the work done and I'll make sure there's no conflict between it and we'll get it done. I'm like, that's an answer, but
So to that point and to your other item about having like a private YouTube channel for folks, I think it's a great idea. So I don't do that here at High Tech, at least for the moment, but in previous jobs, all my previous jobs, one of the things I made people do was we had a rotating schedule of everyone had to present on our weekly meeting every week. So they would have to pick a CTF topic, a technology, something, and present to the group. And the reason I make people do that is something that a gentleman named Jason Rowland, shout out to him, he's a local Phoenix guy, told me probably 15 years ago. He had mentioned to somebody else that if you're not willing to learn how to convey your ideas to other people and work with other people, you will be the smartest engineer that no one has ever heard of.
Yeah.
And no one's going to listen to. And that has been, I've never had to necessarily make that a focus of mine. I've never had to read through a book and figure out, hey, what works to interface with other people. It just comes naturally to me and it comes naturally to other people.
Yeah.
But I've always been good at working with folks. And part of that might be just that I've always been a consultant. I've always been outside an organization trying to convince someone to do the right thing. But I tell that to everyone, and it has, saying I stepped over somebody is maybe not accurate, but I have gone past other people in their career trajectories because and I apologize if I'm cursing here, because I'm not an a-hole. I have
YouTube allows 2 swear. No,
in one of my previous jobs, there was a gentleman who had been with this company for 16 years. And he was slated to move into, I will call it a CISO type of role, but maybe more on the technology side. And I had been consulting for about 3 or 4 weeks when, even as an outside consultant, the CTO went, "Oh no, I want Bonner. I want him on my team for that role." And it damaged my relationship with this other gentleman because, he immediately shut down, wouldn't interface, wouldn't do any of those things. And eventually I pulled him aside. I was like, "Hey man, so what's up? Like, obviously something has changed. You're angry at me." And a lot of people will not have that conversation. Like, even though I don't think it's confrontational, a lot of people are reluctant to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yep.
And he basically goes, you know what? I've been here for 16 years. The role you're in, I should have been there. And I said, hey, name, do you want to know why they slotted me into that role over you? He goes, I would love to hear it. Because he's thinking it's my relationships, it's something else. And I said, I'm not an a-hole. I show up to meetings, and especially from a security practitioner perspective, I'm trying to help the business do something securely.
Yeah.
You show up to tell them no. And what happens is your no doesn't stop the business. It just stops you getting invited to those conversations. And, some people will make it far into their career, and either they don't pick up on that on their own, or someone tells them and they ignore it. Like, you almost have these moments where this shouldn't be new information to you, so-and-so. You're 50 years old. You're this far into your career. How do you not know that that's a thing?
I think some folks, and this is anywhere in your career, by the way, you could be brand new into cybersecurity. You could be 5 years in, you could be 15 years in, you could be 30 years in. The golden rule always still applies, where it's like, treat others the way you want to be treated, which I know sounds so silly. Like, Andy, well, of course we know that rule. Yeah, I know people do. But just, I'd say one thing I have a great skill at, and it's probably from my law enforcement days, is kind of reading a room. When I talk to certain people, or even like when I'm trying to network and communicate with folks, reading body language, looking at facial expressions, kind of feeling out the vibe of what my thoughts are kind of going into, like when I'm kind of like breaking down a process, and like, do people look confused? Do they look like they're dozing off? Do they look like they just don't give a crap? Yep. And that kind of can dictate how should I continue this conversation and go further into more explanation, or should I just end it? And I think that's a very powerful thing that not everyone has that skill set. So I think by having that skill set, and like, not just being the no guy or gal, and being able to describe and explain a reason of, the one thing I love about the military and being a warrant officer is I am an SME, and I have to explain to my commander why something is a bad decision or a good decision. I can't just be like, no, that's a horrible idea. Well, why, Mr. Crotty? Because I said so. Wrong answer. You have to provide a why across any spectrum of who you're talking to. If I'm talking to a soldier, hey, we got to go clean up the motor pool. Well, why do we do that? That's dumb. Well, why we are cleaning up the motor pool is so that it stays clean and tidy and doesn't become disorganized. Where if we wait for another 2-3 months, it's going to look like a jungle. So that's the why. And most times, as long as you explain a why behind an action is being done, that usually solves the solution. Like, oh, okay, well, that's why we're doing it. Exactly. This is why we're doing it. When you simply just tell somebody no, or nope, we're not doing that, and it's because C-suite said no, there's still a why behind the no. And unless it's like top tier secret sauce, which 9 times out of 10 it's not, being able to communicate that down the pipeline, like, hey, look, they said no, but this is why they said no today. Yep. If we can solve that solution of why they're saying no, then we have the possibility of this turning into a yes. So now let's brainstorm of how we can make that solution a reality. So,
and I know a lot of people, especially engineers, security folks, I think a lot of people hate salespeople, right? I think the type of person who's a great engineer is a person who doesn't do well with like high pressure sales tactics of like, how do I get you into this firewall today? Like that doesn't work. But the reality is, if you want to learn how to work with other people, how to convey your ideas, get things across, pick up a sales book. You may not like that perspective and you may feel some of it is dirty, but one thing that an account manager or sales engineer will do is go into a customer site, understand what their challenges are, and then they have strategies on how to position a solution in a way that they are not going to annoy anyone.
Yeah.
And that was just something that I had naturally figured out on my own over the years, where it's like, basically, I never present an idea for the first time in a meeting with other people. I always present it in a one-on-one fashion, right? So if I know that I'm going to have 10 stakeholders, I'll go talk to all of them first. I'll get their buy-in, their understanding, so that when you come into that meeting for the first time, you say, hey, Tony, when we just, I pitched this idea to you, wanted to get your feedback. I've incorporated it to the design. Anthony, I brought this thing in, I've incorporated it to your design, thank you for the feedback. Now you've made it, instead of adversarial or trying to push your idea on someone else where they have to pause and accept and process before they come to terms with it. Now you have buy-in and you can have a much better discussion.
Yeah. Everyone has like a piece to the ingredient to a cake. Like, hey, you get the eggs, you get the flour, you get the spring. So it doesn't seem like it's a one person idea. Everyone gets to contribute and have that feedback. They get to provide back into a solution. No, fantastic, Mike. Well, I have 3 more questions for you, so I want to hammer them out real fast before we get too long into this. Third question I have for you is growth for folks trying to get into cyber. And if you were trying to break in today, and I know we kind of talked about it, like having the YouTube channel, giving talks, really trying to stand out. But what are some things that you'd try to change today or do today if you're having to go back into the industry and trying to break in?
I will preface this of I'm probably not a great person to answer this question just because it's been so long, right? It's been 30 years since I've been new in the industry. And it was very different back then. Back then, when you were an IT admin, so like if you were responsible for security, you were, a systems admin, you were Windows and Linux, you were telephony admin, so you'd be working on PBXs, you would be doing networking, you'd be doing email, you'd be doing everything. And so I got to touch and get a wide experience on everything. And I don't think that role happens anymore. I think things are way too siloed. You can't get that experience. If I was coming in today, honestly, I would almost kind of just focus on building a lab, understanding how technology works. I think that there's a lot of fundamentals that get skipped over or obfuscated by technology, especially like in the world of networking. There's a lot of overlays to technology that obfuscate what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you watch a conversation in Wireshark and everything that's going on, but nothing in that Wireshark PCAP should be a mystery to you. How you stitch things together with SAML should not be a mystery to you. How DNS works, DHCP, those like basic services should not be a mystery to you. Because what I'm finding is folks that are going in with like cybersecurity degrees don't have those fundamentals. Like they may understand what a DLL injection is, but can't tell me what happens when I type www.google.com, what's going on in the back end to get me that web page. And the reality is that as we move away from like signature-based detections into, that's weird, you really need to understand how something is supposed to work to know, hey, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, the reverse engineering aspect and like having that why mentality and just asking questions out loud or among peers, I think is huge in this industry. And no, I think that's still really good advice, because the thing I tell folks as well is having a strong foundation will make you the most successful entry analyst and kind of really being able to build upon that. Because it's just like a house, right? You wouldn't go build a house on sand, because what's going to happen is it's going to collapse and it's not sturdy enough. So when you actually focus on your core entry skills and really make those fine tuned, you can grow from there. And having the understanding and building off the concepts it sounds like it's such an overrated, like, well, obvious, because it's so funny when I talk to people, and I'm sure you have the same thing where it's like, hey, how can I do this and how do I break it? And like, oh, well, work on the fundamentals. Like, well, of course I'm going to work on my fundamentals. But then it's like, but what's the follow-up? Do they work on the fundamentals? Do they come back and actually give you the feedback of, hey, I did what you said, landed my first role, I really appreciate it? Or it's like 6 months later, you see them at another conference, like, hey, still trying to break in. What should I do? Man, Groundhog Day, here we go. Have you heard about the fundamentals?
Yeah. And, I think you spoke with Kevin Tooker, and I know Kevin has a very similar mentality, which is why we get along. And that is something we both pass back to people. And it's interesting to see someone goes and talks to Kevin, gets that feedback, changes nothing, then comes talking to me in 6 months and says, what should I do? And I give the same feedback because they haven't changed, right? Yep. So Kevin kicks people towards like anti-siphon SOC class. Everything in there is something that you're probably going to work on in your career. And if you don't like it, like, you're probably not going to be a great fit. Right?
No, exactly, man. No, 100%. And I love anti-siphon. I've sat through some of their courses, the training, and Zach's fantastic. gotten to work with him a little bit last year as well. But Mike, this has been so fantastic. And I have two last questions for you, which are much more easier off the back. But first off, I'm going to give you a huge shout out and point you off to the GingerHacker swag shop to give you a nice little thank you for coming onto the channel to share all your great insights. And the last two questions we have for you are, when you're not doing cybersecurity, not solving breaches, not worrying about the copious amount of meetings you have daily, I'm sure, what do you like to do for fun? What do you do to unplug and kind of get to relax and kind of just like break away?
Yeah. So historically, I think I mentioned, my background is electrical engineering, and I love tinkering. I have a couple of 3D printers off screen. I have a lot of electronics, things I like to build. That's kind of my passion. Obviously, once I had kids, life changes a little. I am big into puzzles. Cool. As a family, we do, escape rooms. Actually, I can show you this. So
yeah. My wife and I love escape rooms, by the way. It's part of one of our date nights. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like puzzle boxes, things like that. I love these kinds of things. I tinker with them typically off screen when I'm in meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, so when it comes to escape rooms, we typically do like one every weekend or one every other weekend as a family.
Dude, cool. That's awesome.
It's so that's kind of my passion. What I like to tell people is I enjoy solving problems. And I think that's what drove me into security and heavily into getting involved with incident response.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of attributions for 0 days in Azure and AWS. They don't get CVEs because that's not how that works. But of things where I found attackers doing something unique and O-Day in those environments. And like, that's just the coolest thing for me. Like, I love seeing somebody smarter than me do something neat. And the process of me figuring out how they did that is just what keeps me interested in security.
So cool, man. Oh, that's so cool with the escape rooms and the puzzles. Cause yeah, the wife and I we're escape room fanatics. We'll probably do like one every 2 months for like a fun date night. So super cool, man.
Nice.
Well, yeah. Mike, this was fantastic. So glad I got to pull you onto the channel, and thank you for coming on as well. Last but not least, what's the final piece of advice you'd give someone trying to break into cyber?
Can it be a little negative too?
Yeah, no, I love it because like I've explained to people like there's a dark and a light side to breaking into cyber. So yeah. No, please do.
If I'm going to throw two things out. The first is, if you're not actually passionate about security and problem solving, and if you don't find it interesting, it's maybe not the best career choice for you, because you're going to be surrounded by people who are very passionate about this stuff. If a new vulnerability comes out Friday night and you're someone who's expecting to come in at 9, check out at 5, and you don't see it until Monday, you can roll into a meeting on Monday wanting to talk to your peers about it. And they're going to basically say like, dude, we took care of that Friday night. We were up all night. We did, we had proof of concept by Saturday, notifications to our, folks on Saturday. Like, it was totally cool. And that's kind of what you need. Like, I love security. I love problem solving. I go to the gym every day. I listen to podcasts on security. Like, it needs to be a passion for you, and you're going to have a hard time keeping up with people if it's not. Yeah, I actually forget what the second thing that I was going to throw was.
And that's it. No, but I think it reiterates the real importance of like, you have to have a passion for any career you're going to do, right? Yeah. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, as the old saying goes. So 100%. No, I think that's a nail on the head. Good piece of advice for folks trying to get into this field.
Yeah. And I remember the second thing.
Hit it.
If you are passionate and you love it, I've gotten a little bit of grief over this point because I gave it as a keynote to a different conference. When you are young, spend your time, energy, and health getting up to speed for yourself. So I have been told by multiple people that, hey, I'm new coming in and the world is getting more expensive. I know I'm never going to have some things in life. So I'm just going to do minimal effort and just enjoy my life. And the feedback I've given is, you're setting yourself up for failure. Like, you are putting yourself in a place where you don't think you're ever going to have those nicer things in life. And so you're not even going to try. Take the time when you were younger, when you don't have a significant other, when you don't have kids, when you don't have these big life commitments, and work your ass off. Not for your company, not for the people you work for. Do it for you. So for everything that went into my career at IBM, I was there for 7 years. I was on a different project every week, and I busted my butt. Like, if you look at me now, you would say, hey, Mike is in meetings for 10 hours a day. He does nothing, though. What you don't see is that early in my career, I sacrificed my time, energy, money, my social life, spending 80 to 120 hours working multiple projects to get knowledge earlier in my career. And that paid out in spades. Like, I had 15 years worth of experience when I was done with my 7 years at IBM. Spend that time wisely when you can, when you have it. Because, like, I couldn't do that now with my kids, with my family, right? It doesn't work. So when you're young, spend your time, invest in yourself. Don't do it for your company. Don't do it because you want to help the company out. Do it because you want to be the best version of yourself. Like, set yourself up in the future for success today by working your ass off, reading RFCs, doing CTFs. And if you're curious, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm 50 years old. I still do CTFs. I do Holiday Hack Fest every year.
Let's go.
Advent of Cyber, right? I do them all. And you need to be passionate. You need to be interested. So yeah, that's my spiel.
Mike, fantastic, amazing advice. And everybody, drop in the comments, what was your favorite part? Always remember, like, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next video.